After two highly specific tracks in the Nürburgring and Motegi's Oval, we return to some traditional fare for racing. In fact, Laguna Seca is part of iRacing's base content, and as such, pretty much every driver here should be intimately familiar with it. Will that make it harder or easier to catch Shedlick? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 10 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Christian Challoner. Behind the scenes is our director, Robert O'Brien, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. The fame of this circuit has only grown bigger and bigger over the last 30 years with its inclusion in many racing games and sims. Let's head to our track guide to find out more about it. Welcome to Laguna Seca. Located just east of Monterey, California, it's hard to deny that this is one of the more scenic American road courses. It travels up and down a hillside which not only offers spectacular views, but one of racing's most iconic corners. Clocking in at 2.25 miles in length, 11 turns split up the current configuration. I say current because up until 1988, the track's layout was shockingly simple with a mere 9 dangerously fast corners. But despite becoming a much more technical track, this difficult nature was retained in its modern form. Turn 6 in particular places an emphasis on precision and daring with its tricky dip at the apex and narrow racing line. But the most well-known spot on the track is of course the corkscrew. Blind and kinked on entry, it then whips the driver through a chicane which drops you nearly 60 feet. It's earned a reputation worldwide for forcing even the most daring competitors to second-guess themselves. But there's honestly a refreshingly wide variety in types of corners, making it a perfect track for driver coaching and training. Elevation changes, differing cambers, and every sort of apex imaginable leaves seasoned veterans and newcomers alike spending hours trying to perfect a lap. With the track becoming popular for hosting IMSA, IndyCar, and MotoGP in its recent history, it also brings out lots of vintage racers due to the Monterey historics each year. Likely to remain a fixture on the American racing scene, this legendary circuit is almost always high on drivers' best-of lists. Its history and its uniqueness are sure to delight all for years to come. Well, Christian, this should be a fascinating one because, yes, this is a bit of an old school style track, but definitely not fitting for these cars, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say there's quite a few areas around the track that are deceptively difficult. Obviously 11 turns, but there's that kink on the front stretch, which is really not a turn in most cars. In the 49, it's actually pretty difficult, and especially given it leads into braking for the Andretti hairpin. It's very, very easy to loop the car around there. You could also loop it around at the corkscrew as well. That's another corner which is, it's a fearsome corner, but it's even more fearsome in the 49. So quite a tricky track today at 3.6 kilometers. Don't think we should have too much trouble with lap traffic, but it's always a consideration.
Absolutely. And, let's take a look at race details here as we get ready for the race itself. As we mentioned, this is round 10 out of 12, so we're really getting down to it. 3 rounds left, including today. It's 25 laps for this event, so they are going to be cycling around here a fair few times. It's an open setup series, so the drivers, of course, will have plenty to fiddle with in these old F1 cars, even though they're a little bit more basic than maybe the modern ones. There's certainly a lot you can do to try to get the handling how you want. And they have no spare car, so if the drivers find themselves getting into an accident, well, they better hope that it's still drivable, or they're going to have to come into pit lane and just whack away at it until it's repaired. We also have the championship, and up at the top of that, it is currently Jim Shedlick with the drop weeks counted here. Jordan Gronkowski is behind by nearly 30 points with Ove Trangrade back there in third, also trying to chase, but Gronkowski really has been one of the few that's had pace to try and challenge him. He is here today, thankfully. From there on down, it gets pretty far back, especially this late in the season. A very tight fight between Tyler, Quellen, Olsen, and I guess you could put Tixia and Plumley in there as well. About 11 points there between 6th and 10th. But that's just the F1 championship. They have an F2 championship as well, Christian.
And to no surprises, it's Shoya Niva still leading the F2 Championship, 31 points over Matthew Maudsley. He did claw some points back at Motegi, a really good result for Maudsley. He picked up 38 points. Nieva, a little bit of a kind of a midfield showing, came home with only 25 there. But Matt Wright's pretty close too. He's only 1 point further back in that third spot, with Marco Antonio Lopez Legato 46 back, so he's a little bit too far back, I think, now to challenge for the championship with only a couple of rounds to go. Glenn Becker has moved up into the 5th spot, though. That's a little bit of a surprise for us. That was held by Gary Ho for quite some time. And Emmanuel Pereira, Michael Grissinger, Andrew Eng, and Tobias Harvey rounds out the top 10, only 73 off the lead.
And of course, for our Nations Cup, we have the United States still leading because of Jim Shedlick taking the lion's share of the wins. From there, the United Kingdom, Spain, and Norway are basically in a three-way fight to try and decide who gets second place. After that, it starts to really drop back. Singapore, a whole 103 points back, another almost 50 behind the next car. Get a bit of a jump down to Denmark, and things close up a bit from there. Finland, Slovakia tied on points with Australia, only a single one behind them. And looks like the qualifying is underway with a few of the drivers having put a time in. Topi Kortiniemi returns to try and see if he can get yet another win. He's only not won in a single race that he's attended so far this season. Gronkowski goes up to second. Where is Jim, though? Has he set a time? No, he hasn't set a time yet.
Yeah, 21.4 is pretty fast around here. That's up there with kind of the quickest times I've seen so far this week. And Gronkowski, I saw him do a race about through the midweek. He was very, very strong, had really good race pace, so I think he might be able to take it to Topi today.
Let's see if he can with only half a tenth between them. It certainly is going to be tight. Shedlick crosses 21.9, and that's not even on the front row for Jim Shedlick. He's up to 4th. He still has time to improve, and it is pretty cool out on the track today. Is this a case where the drivers are probably going to have a quicker one on their second lap as Kortiniemi takes a wide exit there?
Yeah, I think for sure, especially with kind of how tricky the track is. You see here Topi coming into turn 1 just a little bit there. It is a big slide from Gronkowski out of the final corner. Looks like he's still going to have a pretty good run to the line. We'll have to see what he puts down here. 21.6, so it doesn't better his previous effort.
Kortiniemi did, but it was about by a tenth. Nieva went up into 4th. Shedlick's been shuffled down into 8th place already. And it continues to switch around. I see it looks like most of our front runners have at least got a lap in. The only 4 or 5 left are mostly drivers mid or back of the pack. So we watch Trangrade here on screen on his second flyer, 21.9 on his first time around. It does look like he's improving from the timing that I'm seeing for him as he comes up into the corkscrew. Let's see how he handles this huge plunge.
Yeah, and it's really tricky. The car can go around so easily on kind of both the entry and the exit of the corkscrew, so you have to be very careful. Obviously, there is time to be gained by pushing through there, but, you know, it's always better to be safe than have the car loop on you.
Shedlick comes down to a 21.7 on his second lap. That'll put him back up into 3rd. And Trangrade is... Oh, Sanchez now goes up into 2nd place. That'll bump both Gronkowski and Shedlick onto the 2nd row. From there, looking to see where Trangrade will go, and he goes quicker than Shedlick as well, so must be a bit of a bogey track for Jim. However, he's going to need a lot of bad finishes to give up the championship from here. In fact, I think simply by showing up, he might clinch the championship over the next couple of rounds. Gary Quellen, in the meantime, as he exits the final corner with a 22.5, has about 1.2 seconds off the pole time. A 22.2 will put him even closer, within a second now, into 11th place. And that is just about most of our qualifiers. Let's see who else is still out there.
I'd like to call out the car that's currently in 9th place, my co-worker, Alex Saunders. He was talking about whether he's going to do this race or not. He was asking where I thought he would fall in. I said he would probably be kind of, 5th to 10th place, and it looks like I was pretty good on that call. He's 9th.
A very good call, yeah. As, that is everybody for qualifying. I see nobody else able to set a lap from here. So that means it is time to go through our starting order here today. Topi Kortaniemi, as we mentioned, has taken the pole once again, wants to get back on the top step. Xavier Sanchez, an excellent qualifying for him. Don't think we've seen him take a win so far this season, though. So, yeah, I can confirm that. Has not won yet this season. We'll see if he can break that streak as Jordan Gronkowski will start from third. Another driver that still needs to take a win, shockingly, despite numerous podiums. As Ove Trangrade will start from fourth. You've got Jim Shedlick, our current championship leader, all the way down in fifth, mysteriously. Sebastian Tixier is P6, and Jorge Nieva is seventh. After that, it is Bill Tyler, P8. Alex Saunders, as Christian highlighted, will start from the top 10. Not a bad showing for a newcomer. And John Olsen will round out the top 10.
Gary Quellen with a strong qualifying. He starts in 11th with Ben Zoko, a driver we've seen put in some strong performances. He's back there in 12th. It's going to be a little bit trickier for him to get into the top 5 again today. Mira Razki in there 13th. Matt Wright 14th, so that's looking pretty good for that F2 championship right now. With Marco Antonio Lopez Salgado alongside him in 15th. Matt Maudsley back in 16th, so he might lose that second spot if he finishes there. Seb Alexander saw him do a couple of races this week. He's back in 17th with a 23 flat. Emmanuel Pereira in 18th, Gary Ho 19th, and Robert Plumley back there in 20th.
Laust Olsen not having a good day here. It looks like his first lap was missed, so his second one wasn't all that hot. He's down in 21st. Steve Morris will be 22nd, and Michael Grissinger 23rd. After that, it is Andrew Ang in P24, Tobias Harnvey 25th, and then Andreas Nelson 26th. Inside of the next row, Jordan Zoko is flanked by Eugenio Massa. You've got Dante Gaetano in 29th, last one to set a time. Uldrich Fraunberg, Robert Reynolds, and Jake Bell round out your 32-car field. We got a couple onboards here today quickly before we get rolling, including Laust Olsen. As we mentioned, mysteriously low out there today for Laust, starting from 21st. And then Sebastian Tixier is also going to be giving us a view from the outside of row 3. So they are just about gridded up. We go for 25 laps here in the 10th round of the Grand Prix Legends Series. Who can maybe buck the trends that we have seen so far? Who can beat Jim Shedlick for what have been very few times out here in this series this season? He has been extremely dominant. We're waiting on, it looks like, Salgado and a few others. And it looks like Salgado is now out there. Yep, that is everybody now. So the engines will start to rev as the lights come up. And the green flag is out off the line. Oh, bad for the front row starter of Sanchez as he suddenly finds himself swamped by the rest of the field. Are they going to be aggressive down into the Andretti hairpin with so few places to try and make a good pass here on the first lap? So far, everybody's showing a lot of patience here, and I'm not seeing too much argy-bargy. We are through.
Yeah, it's very easy to overshoot turn 1, but everybody got it done pretty good. Sanchez did say before the start that he was expecting to lose some positions, but I don't think that's quite what he had in mind.
No, I think he was anticipating more into the braking zone, not directly off the start line. Meanwhile, coming out of turn 5, hard move from Shedlick trying to get up on Gronkowski, but couldn't get by. He's still sitting in third, still positions gained. For Jim is a big moment there coming through turn 6 for Gronkowski. Is he going to get attacked into the corkscrew? Looks like no.
Yeah, you can get alongside there into the corkscrew, but it's not really a passing spot. You have to get a lot of give and take from the car that you're trying to get by.
I remember a friend of mine, I was racing many years ago. I tried to pass him in the corkscrew, and he didn't take kindly to that attempt, as we had a couple spinners towards the back. Looks like Gary Ho, Andreas Nilsson, and didn't quite make out the third car, but all three of them are able to get going as our leaders now come through and finish the first lap. Your order for the podium is Kortaniemi, Gronkowski, and Shedlick.
Yeah, and Shedlick didn't really get a good exit out of the last corner there, but Tixier hasn't been able to make him pay for it. He's looked to the inside in turn 1, but a little bit of a half-hearted move there. Didn't ever get alongside.
So there we see Tixier's setup here as he chases on Jim Shedlick. A very neat setup here giving us multiple angles of what's going on. In fact, telemetry, live telemetry. Now, that is extremely cool that he's willing to share that. I'm sure Christian is taking great interest in what he sees there as they come through turn 5 once again. Not as close as he was briefly ago on Jim Shedlick, but still hanging tough.
Yeah, and with Tixia, we've seen in the past kind of seasons, he's had some really strong performances. He was a championship contender last season, but kind of not been as strong, I think it's fair to say, this season. But one thing I am really interested in, that looked like he had an actual Lotus 49 steering wheel there. I wonder where he got that.
I've seen those around, and I can't remember where guys had bought them from, but there are places that will sell sim wheels that mimic the old classic one. In fact, you can get them in that bright red as well. And coming down into the final corner, Sanchez, who we mentioned earlier, was worried about losing places. He wound up in 7th in the end, but he's been kind of holding station. I have a feeling that's going to be kind of the story of this race, Christian, just kind of sitting and waiting for somebody else to make a mistake.
Yeah, it's deceptively difficult to pass at this place as Tixia has actually gone deep into turn 1. He's opened the inside for Ove, but I don't think he saw Ove was there. He kind of chopped him off a little bit on the exit of the hairpin, but yeah, it's actually really difficult to pass at this track. The straightaways are kind of just short enough that it's not easy to get alongside into a braking zone.
Coming off of turn 4, terrain grade not only has Sebastian in front of him, but that's Jorge Nieva just behind him. Another potential good finish for our F2 points leader, who lost a bit back to Maudsley last time out. We had a problem with Andrew Ang. Looks like I think that was a solo car incident. Yeah, that was, so don't need to go back to that. He just spun off of turn 3. But yeah, Nieva up in 6th. He took a 2nd place at one point as we got side by side behind them. Saunders on, looks like Bill Tyler, and they're going to be able to get away with it through the corkscrew, but it looks like Bill Tyler's not done with him as he holds the inside down through Rainy Curve, and he's going to be on the outside into turn 10. Still this carries on, and finally he gets fed out.
Yeah, and I think that was Tyler trying to make a pass on Alex there. He just wasn't kind of keeping with the group ahead of him, and Bill tried to get by into the corkscrew, and Alex was having none of it. Yeah,
great defense there. It's not easy to go side by side that long, and it looks like it started with a mistake from Saunders. Brake just deep enough, just barely deep enough to hold on to it a little bit farther back, and I think he maybe would have lost that position. Is defense a pretty good strength of Alex from your experience with him?
I feel like he's probably going to be very cautious in this race. I'm actually a bit surprised that he didn't just let Bill Tyler go there, because this is his first kind of, big Saturday morning race in the 49, and he was just kind of looking to see where he would fall out. So I'm a little surprised he defended that. I don't think Alex is particularly aggressive with defenses, but I am surprised to see that he didn't kind of let that go.
Shedlick just had a problem, and he might lose another one as Sanchez is going to try and pounce on it. Another side-by-side situation. They give each other plenty of space, and once again, it just about carries into Rainy Curve, but not this time. So what happened to Jim? Let's see if he's safe here as we take a look at the replay. It looks like maybe turn 6, which is a common problem spot in just about any car. Here he comes. Is it inside curve? Is it outside? Too hot.
I just carried too much in there and then had to gather it up. And lost quite a lot of time from this because he ended up so far out in the gravel.
Yeah, this is great news for Gronkowski, who is now going to gain even more points, but still Jordan is in 2nd and not really gaining on Cortiniemi up to this point, as we get another angle from onboard Jim there through the corkscrew as that battle raged on. And back to Jim. He is running P6 about 1.7 seconds behind Jorge Nieva, who is now up to the top 5 even. So there's the number 2 on your screen, and there is that number 18 who has been continuously just showing that maybe he needs to be bumped up to the Formula 1 level of the championship with his skill. Looks like Tobias Harnby just had an off. Checking to see if that's another single car incident, and indeed it is. So already this place is catching out plenty of drivers.
Yeah, absolutely, and we've seen throughout the season that Nieva's just been really strong. In past seasons he's had He's had some good results too, but this season I think he's yeah, I don't think he's going to be eligible for F2 after this one, because I mean he's regularly running in at least the top 10 and often in the top 5 now.
Maudsley needs quite a gain. He basically needs some DNFs from Nieva for a serious hope at this point. Coming down the front stretch here, a little bit farther towards the back of the pack, this is Laust Olsen, and has only gained 1 position from where he began. Not sure what's up with him here today. Usually a top 10 runner in this car, and apparently just not all that great with this track. Of course, we were talking before the race, Christian, that we've got the iRacing Indy 500 this weekend, so I wonder if that's been distracting a couple drivers.
Yeah, it's entirely possible, and I was a little bit surprised that we only got 32 cars for this race, but I have to feel that that's probably played some role in it, especially, you know, with this being base content, you kind of expect a big turnout for a race such as this. But I think the big thing as to why Laust hasn't moved forwards quickly is just because it's so hard to pass around here. You know, we see a lot of single car mistakes, and that generates opportunities and whatnot, but just raw ability to pull alongside someone into a braking zone is very, very difficult. The one area I'm surprised we haven't seen more use of yet is that kind of concrete pad on the run down to turn 1 on the outside. It's risky, but you can put the car out there and gain a little bit of time and maybe even kind of hang on the outside of the Andretti hairpin so that you've got an opportunity into turn 3.
Yeah, we saw a pass there for Olsen just getting past Alexander as, Shedlick just lost another one. Sanchez just got by into the Andretti hairpin, actually. And in fact, it almost looks like it was facilitated a bit by what you just talked about, where Jim tried to go open it up and go a little wide. Let's take a look at the replay. This will be a perfect angle from Sanchez. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Sanchez is close enough to kind of make a pass, but Jim didn't look like he's got a good run down the straightaway here. I'm not sure why he's got kind of low on the straight lines a bit. Yeah, but there you go. You see, I went onto the concrete pad, but doesn't get it turned in at all. And that's the danger of what can happen with that. If you don't get the turn in exactly right when you're on that concrete pad, you'll just run way wide.
So that is how Sanchez got it done. We need to come back to Trangrade and Tixier, though. Man, Ove has been all over that gearbox these first couple laps, and this is for the last step on the podium as we look back. Now there you see the bright red number 12 chasing the 7 as they come down towards the braking for the Andretti hairpin. In all of this, though, I don't think Tixier is necessarily slow, because he's actually holding up with Gronkowski in front of him, too.
Yeah, the gap that's opening up really is between Courtnimi and Gronkowski. It's not opening up much, but it is about 2 seconds now, so Gronkowski won't really be getting any beneficial draft down the straights from Courtnimi now. I think he might be safe for the race lead, but it looks like it's starting to stack up a little bit for the second spot.
Yeah, so will that help Courtnimi even more? Maybe stretch away up to 2 seconds past the other 3 just behind him. Amazingly, with the problems we've had, we've only lost, well, I don't think anybody. We just had a spin for Gaetano coming off of turn 6. In fact, it looks like he didn't hit anything, so he probably will be able to keep going if he desires to. We've had Grissinger start from pit lane, so everybody's still running.
Someone's off on the run up to the corkscrew.
Yeah, that's Gaetano. Dante in the number 28, who just went off at turn 6 and then kind of parked it. And for some reason, he's just kind of sitting, waiting there as we continue to see the 7 and the 12. Very, very close coming up the run towards the start-finish line. Gronkowski about 0.7 of a second up ahead. Will either of them try and go wide this time? Looks like maybe Trangrade trying to open it up slightly and then diamond off the exit, but that didn't pay him any dividends.
Yeah, speaking of other drivers who've had misfortune, we saw Jake Bell didn't actually take the start and didn't actually set any practice or qualifying times, but Michael Grissinger, really unfortunate for him. His power went out, so he's back in the race, but he's 6 laps down.
That is extremely frustrating. And there you see Michael out on track, a regular out here. Oh, Jim Shedlick's in the wall. Jim Shedlick has wrecked out of turn 4. And again, single driver incident. This is highly unusual for the number 2 car. It looks like he may have just gotten away without touching the wall. Now that I take a look at it on my screen, but we've got the replay up. Let's take a look at it from this angle here. It's going to be, I think, the left or right rear that comes within inches of making contact. So if he did touch, it's going to be extremely light, but a little touch. Oh, and look how early he knew that was going.
Yeah, you saw right on the curb there. He was on it heavily with the left front, so the left rear was basically already in the gravel. Does keep it out of the wall, but that's the challenge of this track, and kind of where I was saying it's deceptively difficult because you want to push for the lap time and everything, but it punishes mistakes heavily, and so that's the risk.
Down to 15th for Jim Shedlick. A very, very odd race for him here today. Is this back with Olsen again? Somebody was right on top of somebody there. That was actually Matt right on Robert Plumley, and Jim in amongst them as well. So this is going to be a car out of position, fighting with 2 that are mostly in position, although you could say Robert Plumley might be a bit out of his element. He's gained 7 from the start, and I'm not sure if that's just attrition or if he qualified poorly.
Well, we've seen that he does pick up top 10s every now and again in the series, and has had some really strong results as well with that top 5 at Monza that time. But the thing is, really, is just keeping it on the road. He has obviously made passes, but it's really a game of consistency on this track.
Matt Wright giving way to Jim Shedlick, who made the move to take 14th there on your screen. So nicely done by him. So it's been shuffled around, but it's mostly down to little offs in spins out of our drivers here today, as now he tries to see if he can go by Plumley. Will this be easy pickings, or is he going to find just how tough it is in this desert circuit to try and go by? He's going to have some defense from Plumley. He's not going to roll over and let this happen.
Yeah, but I think he really compromised his own line there. It looks like he got a little bit lucky because he was so slow at the apex. It checked up Jim's run, so he wasn't able to make anything from it. Jim's looking. I don't know if he's going to try on the inside here. He is.
And he's going to be able to get to the inside, coming down through the Andretti hairpin. He's got it done. So Shedlick back up into 13th. Well then, we've got quite a bit of the race still left to go. Zocco, in the meantime, bends back, and whoa, big wreck in front of him. Back row Bob, I think, trying to let somebody through, trying to see who that was that he hit.
I think it was Gaetano. Yeah, Gaetano just got in the back of him. He was going to the outside as well. I think he was trying to let cars past.
Yeah, and he was braking way, way later than Bob, so the two came together. That was very unusual and not typical for this series. Drivers are often priding themselves in the cleanliness of this racing, but that was just sadly a bit of miscommunication. Here you're going to see. In fact, he just let Bob by, it looked like, and then did not figure out where his brake marker was as he returned to the racing line. Both of them unfortunately taken out, though it looks like Bob is able to continue to drive the car. No, he's still sitting stationary. Wonder what he's trying to do there. Gaetano has taken a tow, and he is in pit lane. So let's head up to Hraski now. This has been quite a close fight. I've been watching this ever since we poked our heads back to Jim Shedlick, because at first it was a few seconds in front of him, but now they've been caught. There's a lot of cars in line here. That's Quellen, Olsen, Zocco, and Hraski being caught up.
Yeah, and obviously Shedlick just on the back of this line, and it has kind of separated out just a little bit. I think it was a tiny bit closer than this before. The kind of the battle of this looks like it's going to be John Olsen versus Garrett Quellen.
Quellen up to Olsen where he began this race so far, which is essentially a fight for ninth in and amongst them. Ulrich Frauenberg having a bit of trouble just in front, coming down through the corkscrew, and it's hard to let traffic by, as we just witnessed. Will he try and pull over? He's going to stay to the outside, And John Olsen ducking down to the inside, able to get through, but he gets held up slightly. Zoko's going to try and take advantage. He gets down to the inside, braking deep, nearly running into the back of his competitor. John Olsen just gets it woed up in time, but now it is a drag race down to the first turn.
Yeah, and I think the advantage is definitely to Zoko, and Olsen had to lift there through the kink.
He's going to get through, and we've now had a problem with Tixier. Tixier falls off the podium. And Trank rates hit him as well. This time it was not a single car incident. Tixier spinning collected up Ove Trankrate, who wound up on his lid. So here it is down into the Andretti hairpin. It's going to be out of turn 3, which is the right-hander coming up. Tixier going to have a bit of a spin. Ove unable to avoid, tries to get to the inside, but that way is already blocked, hits wheels, and that's the last thing you want in these cars.
Yeah, they have a tendency to kind of go over pretty easily when that happens, and a little bit surprised to see the 49 looping out of 3. Seen it with other cars, but a bit surprised to see it happen on exit in the Lotus 49, especially with Tixier, you know. He kind of tends not to make those sort of mistakes, but 2 main contenders now out of the race, and Jorge Neva up into 3rd spot.
Exactly, and let's see, is this, I think this will be his 4th podium, potentially, if I'm seeing correctly, this season.
I think that's correct. He's going to have to fight for this, though, because obviously Sanchez is very, very close to him and recovering from that very poor start that he had.
Sorry, I was overestimating his 2nd podium, it looks like. So 2nd podium of this season, if he can stay here. But yeah, Sanchez is going to make it a battle, no doubt, as the 2 of them both hailing from Club Iberia. Don't know if they're both Spaniards or if both or one are Portuguese, but as they come up into the corkscrew and then plunge back down the hill, they're separated by a mere 0.5 of a second and have a pretty good gap back to the next one, which is your friend Alex Saunders.
Yeah, indeed, and I think Alex has just kind of been having a pretty quiet race here. Aside from that battle he had with Bill Tyler through the corkscrew, I don't think much has really happened for him, which is probably exactly what he was after, if I'm honest. Yeah,
just accept a quiet race and get those 5th place, those top 5s into your iRacing stats. As we are past the halfway now into this event. Looking through the field to see what's happened to some of our battles. Zoko got by Olsen and has actually managed to keep him pretty decently behind. But Shedlick is still trying to attack a few of these guys, including Haraski, who he gets just about a foot away from before he starts to back it up. Surely he is going to have a chance to try and make a move here soon.
Yeah, you would think. And it's actually taken him a little bit longer to get to the back of Haraski than I thought it would. He was hovering kind of about a second and a half back for a while, and it's taken him a number of laps to close it down. But he's fast in places where he can't pass, which seems to be the difficulty, especially at this track overall. You know, you can see him running up to the back of Haraski on pretty much every single apex, but unless he's... Oh, there's somebody behind him. I think that was Plumley going wide.
It was indeed. He's slow, and Matt Wright is going to pick it right up after he had lost that position from him a little bit earlier. Down the hill they go once again. So Plumley back to 13th, which is, I believe, where we picked him up initially. And he's going to have to do that hard work all over again. Oh, and Shedlick's going for the move. Shedlick is going to get to the inside and manage to overtake on Haraski. Now, Miro could fight back here. He's close enough. Let's see if Jim's going to try and defend. And at first, yeah, he held the inside, but no, back to the racing line he goes. As wide goes Haraski on the entry. And hearing that Jorge Nieva, he's lost 3rd. What has happened to the 18 car?
He might have run wide at turn 3, but that's just a suspicion based on the gravel tracks that are out there now.
Just reading the information given to us, and just had a little bit of trouble already. Car looks very loose into Andretti. Does he go a little wide and clip the dirt? No. Oh, man, just got rattled, I guess, and made enough mistakes that off he went.
Yeah, and the detective of the tire tracks was indeed correct. They were near ever out there, and yeah, it looked like that all kind of started with the Andretti hairpin. Got in a little bit deep, got a little bit close with Sanchez, and then just went wide in the following turn.
Oh, and we missed it, but Shedlick also had a moment in turn 5, had to catch the car. That allowed Rasky to get back through, and then he repassed Rasky in the corkscrew. So Miro's making this quite an entertaining race for the number 2 car, but it looks like now he's starting to pull away a bit more. This is Plumlee on screen, who is down to 18th position with yet more issues on that last lap. So continuing to bleed spots that he had done so well to gain. This is Rasky on your screen, up to from where he began. So still a net gain for the number 13.
Yeah, and he's kind of always been sort of a top 10 contender in the series. And, you know, it's interesting when you kind of get to those sort of areas in the standings of, say, 10th, 5th, 3rd. Drivers tend to kind of fight for them a little bit more than they do anywhere else because, you know, the whole stats thing and everything is important to people.
Absolutely. Well, and, you know, I feel like in this series, there are definitely those few aliens that are always in contention for the wins, and everybody else kind of knows those top 10s are usually the best that you can fight for. And plus, especially at a track as punishing as this, if more people ahead of them fall out, I mean, take a look at Saunders, then you have a chance to snatch up a very, very good finish.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen drivers kind of throughout the season and in past seasons where you can get a top 5 just by having a quiet run, so to speak. Obviously, you've still got to qualify well to begin with, but we've talked about it before. Plumlee obviously picked up a top 5 at Monza when there was the giant wreck on the run down to Ascari. And today, Saunders is in position for a top 5, but Bill Tyler is, you know, still pretty close.
Absolutely. And for those that weren't aware, I drove this series for about 5 or 6 years, so definitely took a lot of time. As Rasky's had an off in the Andretti hairpin and is going to give up a lot of spots himself, as we watch on Ben Zocco fighting for 7th with Quellen here. But in all those 5 or 6 years of racing in this thing, consistency was definitely one of my strong suits. And even with that and all that time and with fewer cars competing in that era, I had a single win over all that time. That is how hard it is to take a victory in these cars.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just staying on track is a challenge, really. So to actually win the race is, something pretty special. And Jimmy Shedlick is doing a good example of how difficult it is to, you know, move forwards at this track. Obviously, he's had a couple of issues and whatnot, but you would think with kind of the pace he typically has that it should have been relatively straightforward for him to move back up into contention and maybe a top 5. But it took him a long time to get back into the top 10, and was a couple of mistakes in there as well. And he's still got to catch back up to John Olsen, and he's got 6 laps to do it. I think he can close the gap, but whether he can actually make the pass is a bit of another story.
Indeed. And it seems like we're having a bit of a snowball effect on a number of drivers, because we saw multiple problems from Shedlick that put him as far back as he did. We saw Plumlee a bit ago have multiple mistakes. And now Rasky did as well, not just his off into the first hairpin, but coming through turn 6 on this last lap, he lost another position going wide through there. So I wonder if this place is just testing people's focus.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about it. I think we've kind of got sort of unseasonably cold track temperatures here as well, which, you know, typically is a lot of grip and everything, but sometimes it can sort of go against you a little. We heard, I can't remember which track it was, but there was one qualifying session where it was very, very cold, and drivers actually were complaining that there wasn't any grip. So I wonder if that's got kind of something to do with it. The times are fast, but maybe the feel isn't quite so good.
That's true. I wonder if we could go back to Ben Zocco, because Quellen has a mirror full of that blue number 10. John Olsen is also in there, and this might be good news if you're Jim Shedlick. If these 3 start to fight, then that will help him gain in these final 5 laps that they have before them. They're going to put another lap on Michael Grissinger, who's not really battling anybody. He's trying to probably gather up some safety rating and pick up whatever spots come his way when those ahead of him wreck.
Yeah, he's actually about to gain 2 spots on Tixier and Trengerade after their altercation at the exit of turn 3.
In fact, he just did. Yeah, he's up to 27th now, so has overtaken them, and he's ahead of back row Bob. Frauenberg's our next one in 26, but he's still those 5 laps ahead. A lap down from the leaders, but still probably out of reach unless he wrecks. I think right now, yeah, because Grissinger will have to overtake him on the last lap if Frauenberg will have an incident. Meanwhile, coming up the hill towards the corkscrew, Zoko too far away from Quellen. John Olsen also too far away from him. Shedlick last lap, 22.7. Last time for Olsen, 23 flat.
Yeah, and whilst we've kind of been looking at this battle, something I've just noticed, I'm not sure what's happened, and I don't think it's race ending or anything like that, but Gronkowski went from about 3 seconds behind to now over 10 seconds behind on Cortinemi. So he's obviously had an error somewhere, and it's dropped him back towards Sanchez.
I'm looking to see the last lap wasn't particularly slow. So, yeah, this one's a bit of a mystery. If anything, the last 4 laps were actually slower than what he was running before, because he was doing 121s, and then he just dropped off a cliff, and now he's doing 123s every lap. Maybe he's backing it off, not feeling safe in the car.
That's a lot of backing it off, though, and it's backed him off basically into the clutches of Sanchez. Sanchez is only half a second behind. The only reason I can think that you would go that slowly is because you've underfueled the car and you've now just realized.
That could be. Maybe he clobbered a curb wrong or something somewhere and damaged the car. I don't know. This is very, very strange. Yeah, and look at the lap time differences between himself and the Finn, who we haven't really looked at a whole lot, but the number 3 has basically just been dominating the field here today, very cool and calmly. So we watch the UK&I driver be chased by Sanchez, and Sanchez is within striking range now. He's going to go for it. The first opportunity that he sees, he sends it up the inside into the Andretti hairpin, and Gronkowski does not fight it. He is through.
Yeah, and I'm just really confused by this, because Gronkowski's pace was very strong. You know, he wasn't fighting Cortinemi, but he was staying with him, and now all of a sudden it looks like all the pace has literally just disappeared out of the car.
Hopefully we'll get to chat with him, but he's going to have to fight hard to at least finish on the podium if he decides to come and talk to us off of the podium, because Nieva is right behind him, still not out of the hunt for a top 3 and getting to spray the champagne for the second time this season, which is exactly opposite of what Matthew Maudsley wanted. Poor Matthew, he's still down in 12th place, so he's going to find a huge swath of points slip through his fingers once again. Jorge, though, is pushing the limits.
Yeah, that's what can happen if you just overstep a little bit in the corkscrew. It's very easy for the car to just snap around on you like that. He did a great job of holding on to that, and you can see ahead, Gronkowski's just... I don't know what's going on, but he's just not looking good right now.
Something, I mean, whatever it is, something's not right with the car. That's the best I can figure. Either that, or he could have some sort of technical issue that maybe he's fighting, maybe lost sound or something to that effect. Wow, another attempt from Nieva, but this time he wasn't close enough to try and get through. They go and put a lap on Frauenberg, who's now 2 laps down, and that's a great exit from Nieva, but not good enough. Gronkowski will hold on to 3rd for the time being. Yeah,
just not able to really make any advantage on the good run that he had there, but Gronkowski definitely looks slow. It's just a little bit confusing as to why he suddenly lost so much pace, because obviously he was close to the pace of Cortinemi, and this has got to be really disappointing for him, because it's really difficult to even stay with Topi, and he was doing a great job of it, and now at the end it's going to say that he was about 15 seconds behind.
Down through the corkscrew they fly, and we're going to be 2 laps to go at the line. Cortinemi now a full 13 seconds ahead of Sanchez. In fact, Gronkowski has another lapped car between himself and Sanchez. That might offer a pick for Nieva if he feels aggressive enough. Makes me wonder if Alex Saunders might even catch up to these two, depending on how hard they fight. There it is, 2 to go. Coming down into the hairpin. This is where Gronkowski lost it from Sanchez, but this time he's actually defending, it appears.
Yeah, it definitely looks like the last lap he has made some efforts to pick it up a little bit, but still not looking like he's got the pace that he had in the early part of the race.
Absolutely does not. And as they come through turn 4, they went past the lapped car of Harnvey. Thankfully, didn't slow either of them up. Gronkowski still leading, but also still slipping away from Sanchez in front of him. It's now a full 2.6 seconds. Just has to survive for another lap and a half through turn 6. That one looked pretty decent, although Nieva gets a run. Does he dare up into the corkscrew? No, he doesn't.
Doesn't, but actually Gronkowski braked a little bit later than Nieva there.
Big blink there from Jorge. And we're understanding that the acceleration might be appearing to be off for the number 9 car. Wonder if his pedals are malfunctioning, maybe not getting to 100%?
It's possible. I mean, that's where he looks weak. Obviously, on the run-up to the corkscrew there, he got hauled in pretty quickly on such a short straight. Nieva's got a great opportunity here. He's got to try it into turn 1. He does. He's going to the outside, though.
As they get up to speed and hit the brakes, looks like Gronkowski is going to make them fight for it. Sometimes you can make the pass around the outside, but not this time for Jorge Nieva. It's the final lap. 1 more to go.
And it has actually brought Saunders into play. You can see him in the background with his purple car.
Although he had a bit of a wide run through turn 3, and that cost him a lot of time. That's still Bill Tyler behind him as well. So he's got to watch out. He can't make many more mistakes. In fact, Tyler caught up again through turn 4, and so did Nieva on the run down into turn 5. Gronkowski keeps him back, and Jorge buckles under the pressure as he spins the tires.
Yeah, huge snap of oversteer there, but we did see him close up on the run to the corkscrew last time around. So let's see if we can do that again.
But we've got to go to this man, Topi Kortaniemi, about to take another victory here in the Grand Prix Legends Series as the number 3 exits the final turn. Topi is going to take the win from the pole position here at Laguna Seca. Meanwhile, Gronkowski still ahead of Nieva. Does Jorge send a wild dive on Jordan? No, he's not going to be that over-eager. And I think Gronkowski will somehow pick up a third. I hope we get to chat with him and find out what happened to the car at the end as Nieva wound up finishing less than 1/10 of a second behind him. Or excuse me, 2/10 of a second behind him, it appears. Saunders with a solid top 5 at his first attempt. I think he should stick around, frankly. Looks like we got a couple good movers with 4 spots for Quellen and Zoko gained here in this race. Other than that, I think the only other big mover, the one that beat them on that, is Andreas Nielsen in the 23, who's looking at a 20th place, up 6 spots.
Yeah, quite difficult to pass out there today. A lot of the movement was from mistakes.
It certainly was. Yeah, I see a lot of red arrows on my timing screen with some big numbers next to them, unfortunately. But that's going to take us to a quick break. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Welcome back to Laguna Seca. This was an interesting race, fraught with mistakes, but also some giant-slaying performances from a few drivers. Topi Kortaniemi certainly proves himself still to be a giant to topple, though, as he takes yet another win, but is not in the championship hunt and steals valuable points from some of those who are vying for them. Sanchez finished in second. Gronkowski really wanted a better race today, but we sussed out what the problem was. He made contact that we didn't see with a spinning lap car, and that borked his suspension. He was able to claw home a third in spite of that. That makes that an impressive run. Jorge Nieva was fourth as Alex Saunders comes in to try his hand at vintage machinery and has a pretty good hand at it, actually. As fifth place for him was ahead of Bill Tyler, very close at the line with 6. Gary Quillen was P7. It was Ben Zocco P8. Then you've got John Olsen 9th and Jim Shedlick with multiple spins and off tracks, only 10th today.
Yeah, Matt Wright with a solid run, up 3 spots to finish 11th. Matthew Maudsley, kind of a similar rise. He went from 16th to 12th. Miro Ransky, we saw him threatening for a top 10, but unfortunately a couple of late race issues kind of put paid to that charge, and he finishes where he started in 13th. Seb Alexander, a quiet race for him, but a gain of 3 spots to finish in 14th. Manuel Perez, same deal, another gain of 3 spots with a quiet race to finish 15th. Marco Antonio Lopez Salgado unfortunately went the other way. He started in 15th and comes home in 16th. And Robert Plumley, we saw him have a rapid rise up to the fringes of the top 10, but then some late race mistakes drops him back to 17th after starting 20th. Laust Olsen, strangely anonymous this race. We'll hopefully get a chance to talk to him about why that was, but he only comes home in 18th spot with Steve Morris 19th and Andreas Nielsen, I think our biggest rise, 26th to 20th.
After that, Gary Ho and Andrew Ang were the last two on the lead lap. Eugenio Massa was 23rd, followed by Tobias Harnvey, and then Jordan Zocco, last one lap down in 25th. Uldrich Frauenberg finished 26th, and Michael Grissinger, in the end, was able to climb back up to 27th. He qualified 23rd, so it wasn't too great of a loss, but still extremely frustrating for him. I'm sure everybody from there on down were sadly DNFs here today. Could have been a lot worse considering how difficult a track it looked to be out there, but it was not tough for Topi Kortaniemi, who took the victory. Let's see if we can have a chat with Topi. As Topi, a win from the top spot, and though at first it looked like they were kind of keeping touch with you, once it hit about halfway through this race, it looked like nobody could hang.
Yeah, I guess Jordan got some damage. I think he said something like that in the chat afterwards. So bad luck for him. He had the same pace. He could have easily cashed me, but and we could have had a good battle. But yeah.
So you continue to come in and steal victories here and there, and you've actually raised yourself quite a bit up in the points order. So with this season ending, obviously you're going to get a fresh slate when we head to season 3. Will you try and compete for the entirety of the next season?
Probably yes, if nothing else comes up. So yeah, but I'm planning to doing the 79 season next season, so we'll see.
So it's going to be hard to try and keep focus on both, I'm sure, with how difficult they each are. Next round, though, speaking of difficulty, we're off to Montreal, and that is definitely a track that gobbles up cars. We have to do a lot of practice for that one.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's a hard track, you're right.
Well, best of luck on it when we catch you there. And again, congratulations on, I have to check how many victories. This is number 4, I believe, sir.
Okay, thanks.
That was Topi Kortaniemi, your winner here today. And it looks like we've got our third place finisher with Christian Jordan Gronkowski with a wounded car getting to the finish.
Jordan, it started off pretty good. You made a good start and were in contention for, a win for a while. You were hanging on to Topi for the early part of the race, and you were kind of just sort of hanging around about 3-ish seconds back for the end part too, until that late race incident. And we saw you dropping back, and just how hard was it to hold on to the car and maintain that third spot?
Might be having some issues here with Jordan. Jordan, do you have a copy? We might might have to take a chat with him a little bit later and see if we can get him in. In the meantime, Christian also has Jim Shedlick, who didn't have the best of days for himself.
Yeah, Jim, this was a little bit of a strange performance. We're not used to seeing you qualify as far back as 5th spot, and we're even less used to seeing you finish at the tail end of the top 10. What happened today?
Yeah, it's been a tough week. I injured my ankle and been in a walking boot all week, so I tried to practice before the race to see if I could be safe enough to race and pick up some points, and that's what we did. I wish we could have finished a bit better, but really just at this point had to do a little bit of points racing. I think even worse though, unfortunately my shifter started acting up mid-race too, so kept kind of jumping out of 3rd gear, and then actually went into 1st a couple of times at the end, so that's something we'll have to fix for next week.
Well, if all things considered, then I think top 10 is actually a pretty good result. Knowing all that, I think we would have had a little lower expectations, and obviously you were actually running pretty close to the front of the field and in the top 5 until you had that issue at turn 4, so it could have been quite a good result. But as you say, points racing, this top 10 is still good, and I don't think it's loosened your grip on the championship here at all, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think we're fortunate to have a pretty good lead. I mean, obviously it's frustrating. I want to go out there and race for the win, but yeah, it is what it is. And I think the big thing I'm hoping for is just that this doesn't impact the rest of the races. I might have the same problem next week, so we'll see. We'll just do what we can.
Well, speaking of next week, it's Montreal, and obviously a lot of curb hopping at that track. You got any thoughts on it?
Yeah, that's my thought too. I think when I've raced in Montreal before, it seems to be a bit of a game of getting as close as you can to the off tracks and not getting slow down penalties. So definitely practice will be very important to perfect the line. So I'm hoping I can practice more this week.
Sounds good, and hopefully you're fully recovered for next week as well, because that will be quite a tricky track if you still got the ankle problems. And well, before we let you go, is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, just shout out to any family and friends who are watching, giving me some lessons on how to conduct interviews, so hopefully I did better this week.
Absolutely, and we wish you all the best with the recovery, and hopefully we get to chat with you next week, and we're hopefully going to see you back in your usual position.
Thanks, Christian.
With that, we've also got Ben Zocco ready to talk to us. An 8th place finish, 4 up, one of the biggest movers in this race, amazingly, without many drivers being able to capture a lot of spots. And we talked about that a lot, Ben, where it seemed like passing was extremely difficult. What was it like from inside the cockpit?
Yep, passing was extremely difficult, but it always is at Laguna Seca. But the racing is always tight. I guess it's a shorter lap times. So it's usually you're racing closer together with your rivals. So it was good to be in an exciting battle the whole time with Gary and John, and just waiting for someone to make a big enough mistake to get by. And managed to a bit of an opportunistic move on John, and luckily he saw it coming because it was a bit far back, and left me room and got by him. And then I tried to put pressure on Gary, but he doesn't make too many mistakes. When he does, they're not big enough to get by. Had a couple chances to throw a dive bomb on him as well, but I don't know. I was a little bit faster under brakes into the corkscrew in the first corner, which is a good places to make passes, but it's just so dangerous. You can't just chuck it in.
There's just nothing easy about this track for sure. And you were a part of that big group that was battling almost all race, just a huge line of cars. When you saw Jim Shedlick fly back, or when you realized that he was somewhere behind you, did you kind of go, oh no, not this?
Yeah, I did a little bit, but to be honest with you, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen, so I didn't really know what was going around. I just saw something, the crew chief or whatever says that P2 or something has gone off at turn 4 or whatever, and I could see some dust. And I'm like, okay, I know where that corner is. And I'm thinking, yeah, I did for a minute think, okay, there's going to be a fast guy coming back through. But obviously it's that hard to pass. He couldn't get his way up through the pack. So that probably meant that I could hold off. That's probably the only other position I gained. I think I overtook John and and whoever it was it Jim, was it, who crashed out, or not crashed out, but lost it there. So lucky to get that one.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. But obviously, where your focus was here today. What about next week going to Montreal? There's certainly a lot of pitfalls to watch out for.
One of my favorite tracks of all time, and unfortunately real life is getting in the way again. It's been like 4 weeks in a row now I haven't been able to race, and next week I won't be racing either. I'll be going away somewhere, so I've missed out on Hockenheim, a favourite of mine, Montreal, so yeah, it's just unlucky.
We're sad we won't get to see it, but anybody you want to give a shout out to for today's top 10?
Just John again for his awesome setups. They just seem to suit me really well, and the car's just so well behaved. It's really easy to drive, really nice to drive, so thanks John.
That was Ben Zocco, who finished 8th here today, and we're going to give it one more shot with Jordan Gronkowski. Christian's caught up with him. Let's see if we got the mic working.
We got you this time now, John?
Hello.
There we go.
I can't hear anything. If you guys can hear me, I can't hear a thing, unfortunately.
Okay, well, we have him, but he doesn't seem to have us.
Weird.
This seems to be a bit of a shame.
Okay, yeah, if you guys can hear me then, I'm absolutely exhausted after that race. I really enjoyed it, yeah, it was good despite the little bit of damage at the end. The last few laps were very painful after the after the damage, so, but yeah, amazing to keep P3, really happy. Hopefully you heard that. If not, I'll hopefully speak to you next time.
Yeah, we got you on that, and it did look like it was really, really tough to just hold on to the car at the end of the race. And a great job in doing that, so congratulations on holding on to the top 3.
Well, I'm glad we at least got to get his perspective, even though we couldn't have a real full interview with him, but hopefully we'll get that sorted out for next week. And speaking of next week, let's talk about that in a second, because we want to thank, of course, the Lotus 49 community for bringing us back this week for another season of coverage here. And also a thank you to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Check out her Bandcamp for more great work. And thanks to the team today, Christian, Rob, and Dougie. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media. Also, check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenv.com. We keep a link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment, because, as we mentioned, it's up to Canada for Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, Saturday, May 28th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out. Mark them down on your calendar. Up next, it'll be the Camel GT Series at Suzuka. That'll be at 1 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.